Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. We're going to be doing an in-depth summary and review of a classic, a business classic.
It challenges, a lot of assumptions about what makes companies great.
It really does. We're talking about Built to Last, Successful Habits of Visionary Companies by Jim Collins and Jerry I. Porras. When I first picked it up, I thought it'd be like a step-by-step
Like a recipe, yeah.
to become like the next Apple or Amazon. But it was way more than that.
It's not about quick fixes. It's about understanding what makes companies not just survive, but actually thrive for a long time. And what's really interesting is it's not about starting with some amazing idea.
Yeah. Like, look at HP.
Yeah.
They had some false starts before they really hit their stride.
Right.
Or Walt Disney, right. His early ventures, not exactly magical.
Not quite.
What Collins and Porras found was that these visionary companies, the ones that last, they share some core principles.
Regardless of their industry or their beginnings. And that's where this idea of clock building versus time telling comes in. So instead of focusing on short-term results like a time teller, visionary companies, they're more like clock builders.
Oh. Yeah.
They're creating systems and mechanisms that are going to, last for generations.
Okay, so how does this clock building actually happen in a company? The book talks about core ideology, which, kind of sounds like corporate jargon.
It might sound like jargon, but it's actually a really important idea. It's like this. Every truly great company has a reason for existing that's bigger than just making money. It has a set of core values and a purpose that guides everything they do.
So it's more than just a mission statement.
Way more, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about a deep belief system that shapes their culture, their strategy, even their day-to-day activities.
Can you give us an example of a company that really lives this core ideology?
Yeah, totally. Look at Merck, the pharmaceutical company. They're all about preserving and improving human life, and you see it in everything they do. Research, development, their pricing, everything. It's not just a slogan. It guides all their decisions.
Okay, but let's face it, business can be pretty cutthroat. Do companies that focus on these idealistic values, do they actually make money?
That's the fascinating part. Collins and Porras found that the companies with this strong core ideology, they tend to outperform companies that are just focused on profits.
Really? So it's not a choice between purpose and profits?
Not at all. That core ideology actually becomes an advantage. It
Yeah.
motivates employees, attracts customers who share those values, and even builds trust with investors.
That makes sense. But, the business world changes constantly. How do these visionary companies stay ahead of the curve and adapt without, losing sight of their core?
That's where stimulating progress comes in. It's all about embracing change and innovation, but always staying true to your core values.
So how do they actually do that? What are some of the things they do to stimulate progress?
Well, one that stands out is this idea of big, hairy, audacious goals, or BHAGs.
BHAGs. That sounds, well, ambitious.
They are. These are goals that push a company way beyond its comfort zone. They're not just small improvements. They're about achieving something remarkable.
Can you give us an example of a BHAG?
Absolutely. Like, think about Boeing's decision to build the 747. At the time, it was a huge gamble, a plane like no other, but it was a BHAG that transformed air travel, cemented Boeing's legacy.
Wow. So BHAs are about thinking big and taking risks, but always staying connected to the company's core ideology.
Exactly. It's not some random idea. It has to be tied to their values and purpose. For Boeing, the 747 wasn't just about building a bigger plane. It was about connecting the world and making air travel more accessible.
That's powerful. So BHAs are one way to stimulate progress. What are some other things these visionary companies do?
Another key principle is try a lot of stuff and keep what works.
That sounds a bit more like something you'd hear from a Silicon Valley startup, not like an established company.
It might surprise you. Visionary companies aren't afraid to experiment, to try things, even if they fail. They understand that innovation comes with risk, and not every idea is going to be a winner.
So it's not about having a perfect plan from the start, but about being flexible and learning from your mistakes.
Precisely. They're masters of adaptation. They have a culture of constantly improving, refining their methods, getting closer to their goals, but they never lose sight of their core ideology.
That's a tricky balance, isn't it? How do they make sure they're evolving but not losing their identity?
It all comes back to alignment. Every decision, every project, every new product or service at all has to fit with the company's core values and purpose.
So they're not just chasing every new trend. They're making sure every step they take is bringing them closer to their long-term vision.
Exactly. And that's where homegrown management comes in. These companies, they know how important it is to develop leaders from within.
Why is promoting from within so important for them?
Think about it. Who's better to lead a company than someone who already understands its culture, its values, someone who has lived and breathed it for years?
Yeah, that makes sense. You're ensuring the people at the top really believe in the company, not just some outsiders you brought in.
Exactly. They're not just managing, they're guardians of the company's legacy, making sure that core ideology guides everything, even as new challenges and opportunities come up.
So they're creating a system that keeps their values strong and ensures the company will last.
You got it. And it's not just about staying the same. Visionary companies also know that if you become complacent, you start to decline.
Which brings us to another principle. Good enough never is.
Right. These companies, they're almost obsessed with always getting better, never satisfied with just being okay.
So even when they're at the top, they're still pushing themselves.
Always. They know if they stop pushing, they start falling behind. And they're not afraid to challenge themselves, to set big goals, to take risks, even if they might fail.
I have to say, some of these concepts, like cult-like cultures, seem pretty intense. Could you talk more about that?
Yeah, it's definitely a term that gets people's attention. But it's important to understand what Collins and Porras mean by it. It's not about anything negative or manipulative. It's more about a really strong sense of community, a shared passion for what they do, a deep commitment to their mission.
So it's more about building a culture where everyone feels like they belong, where they're not just there for a paycheck, but are truly invested in the company's success.
Precisely. You see this in companies like IBM or Disney or P&G. They have these really distinct cultures, almost like a family or a tribe. It's about being part of something bigger than just yourself.
So creating a shared identity that goes beyond everyday work.
Exactly. And that feeling of belonging can be incredibly powerful. You get a level of commitment and loyalty that's just not there in companies with weaker cultures.
But isn't there a risk of creating an echo chamber? A place where everyone thinks the same and no one speaks up if they disagree?
That's a good point. It's something these visionary companies have to be careful about. They need to build a culture that's strong and unified, but also open to different ideas and perspectives.
So balancing unity with diversity, maintaining the core while welcoming healthy debate.
Exactly. It's not easy, but it's crucial for long-term success.
This has been really insightful. I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear more.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot more to explore, and we've only just scratched the surface. You know, one of the things that surprised me about Built to Last was like the emphasis on risk-taking.
Really?
You'd think these companies would be all about playing it safe, but it's the opposite.
Yeah.
They highlight how these visionary companies are the ones making big moves, going for those big, hairy, audacious goals, or BHAs we talked about.
The BHAGs, yeah.
And it's not just about setting ambitious goals. It's about truly believing they can pull it off.
Right.
It's like they have this inner compass, you know, this deep understanding of who they are and what they're all about. And that gives them the confidence to go after those really game-changing goals.
So it's like their core ideology is what actually drives their willingness to take risks.
Exactly.
They're not just taking random chances, but making calculated moves that align with their values and their purpose.
Precisely. Their core ideology, it's not just some nice-sounding statement. It's the foundation that lets them handle uncertainty and take those leaps of faith. Remember Boeing with the 747?
Oh, yeah.
Huge risk, tons of money on the line, but it fit perfectly with their mission of connecting the world through air travel.
Yeah.
And it, obviously paid off big time. Shows how a clear sense of purpose can really empower a company to take risks that others might think are crazy.
It's true.
Yeah.
But it's not just about those big dramatic moves, right? The book also talks about consistent, smaller steps forward.
Absolutely. That whole idea of try a lot of stuff and keep what works. Visionary companies aren't afraid to experiment, to tweak things, to keep improving. They get that not every idea is going to be a home run, and they see failure as a chance to learn.
So it's a process of testing, learning, and refining. Always guided by that core ideology, right?
Right.
It's not about knowing all the answers right away, but having a culture that's open to experimenting and always getting better.
Exactly. They understand that business is always changing.
Right.
So you have to be adaptable, challenge your own assumptions, and be ready to change course if you need to.
Okay, now let's get back to something that might be a little controversial. The idea of cult-like cultures. We touched on it before, But I'm curious to dig a little deeper.
It definitely grabs your attention, that phrase.
Yeah.
And as we said, it's not about anything bad or manipulative. It's more about fostering a strong community, a shared passion, and a deep commitment to the company's mission and values.
So it's about creating an environment where people feel like they genuinely belong,
Yeah.
where they're not just showing up for a paycheck, but they actually care about the company succeeding.
Exactly. Like think of Disney or P&G. Very distinct cultures, almost like a tribe or a close-knit family.
I see.
They've got their own rituals, traditions, even their own way of talking. And that creates a feeling of unity and purpose that can be really powerful.
So it's like everyone's on the same page, working together towards the same goal. But are there any downsides to that kind of approach?
You're right, there can be. It could create an echo chamber where people are afraid to disagree and the company gets stuck in its ways. That's why it's so important for visionary companies to find a balance,
Yeah.
to have that strong culture, but also encourage different viewpoints and constructive criticism.
So they need to be open to new ideas, even if those ideas challenge the way things are usually done.
Exactly. It's about being deliberate and careful with how you cultivate that culture, making sure it doesn't stifle innovation or critical thinking.
Now, you've mentioned alignment
Yeah.
several times. It seems to be a big theme and built to last. Can you explain what that actually means in practice?
Alignment is all about making sure everything in the organization, its structure, its processes, its people, everything supports and reinforces that core ideology. It's making sure all the parts are working together smoothly, moving towards the same goals.
Okay.
So it's about creating a sense of consistency,
Yeah.
where everyone from the CEO to the newest employee understands the company's purpose, its values, and they're all working towards the same vision.
So it's more than just words on a mission statement. It's about seeing those values in action
Yeah.
in every decision the company makes.
Exactly. It's about making sure those values are reflected in their day-to-day work. A great example is Ford and their MVGP mission, values, guiding principles. They didn't just write them down and forget about them.
Right.
They took action. Quality improvement programs, employee involvement, customer satisfaction, even profit sharing with the unions. They really showed that those values weren't just empty words.
So they didn't just talk the talk, they actually walked the walk.
Exactly. They put their values into action. And it shows how alignment can create this incredible sense of unity and purpose. Everyone's working together towards the same goals.
That's really powerful. But I'm sure our listeners are wondering, how do they apply these concepts in their own lives,
Yeah.
their careers, even if they're not running a huge company? What are some of the key takeaways?
Well, one of the biggest is to live by your values. What do you truly believe in? What are your core principles? Figure those out and then start making choices that reflect them.
So walk the walk, even in our own smaller circles.
Exactly. Another takeaway is the power of small, consistent steps forward. You don't need to start with some massive BHA. You can begin with smaller, achievable goals that get you moving in the right direction.
So focus on those smaller wins, the things you do every day that create momentum and lead to lasting change.
And don't be afraid to experiment. Try new things. Get outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Even if you fail, you learn something valuable from it.
Embrace the idea that failure is just part of the process of getting better.
Exactly. And lastly, remember the power of teamwork. Surround yourself with people who share your passion and your values.
Find your tribe.
Yeah. Build those strong connections that will support and inspire you to do your best.
It's about more than just building companies, right?
Right.
Built to Last is about building something meaningful, something that makes a positive difference in the world. And that's something we can all do, no matter what our job is or where we are in life.
Exactly.
It's fascinating how much these visionary companies focus on their culture. It's not just something that happens, by chance. They really work at it.
Yeah, it's not just a side effect of their success. It's a big part of what makes them successful. They know their culture is what sets them apart, especially in a world that's always changing.
And they put a lot of effort into building and maintaining these strong cultures. It's not just slogans on the wall. It's in everything they do.
Exactly. Think about when they hire new people. It's not just paperwork and training. It's bringing them into the company's values and traditions, telling stories about the founders, the early days, the struggles, the wins. They create the shared history that connects everyone.
And they're careful about who they hire, right? They don't just want talent. They want people who fit in, who share their values, who are passionate about the company's mission.
It's like they're building a tribe, a group of people who think alike and are all rowing in the same direction.
That creates a lot of loyalty and commitment, much more than you see in companies where the culture isn't as strong. But could that kind of exclusivity be a problem? What if everyone thinks the same way, and no one speaks up if they disagree?
That's a valid concern, and it's something these visionary companies need to watch out for. They need to make sure their culture is strong, but also open to new ideas and different viewpoints.
So it's about balancing unity with diversity, keeping the core values strong while encouraging healthy debate.
Exactly. It's about making sure people feel comfortable challenging the status quo, offering different perspectives, pushing the limits.
This is inspiring stuff, but I bet some of our listeners are thinking, okay, how do I actually do this? Where do I even start?
Yeah, that's a great question. It can feel overwhelming. But remember, whether you're trying to build a visionary company or just apply these principles in your own life, it's a journey. You don't have to do it all at once. It's about taking those small, consistent steps in the right direction.
So what's the most important first step?
Well, I think it starts with figuring out your core ideology. What are your core values? What's your purpose? What do you stand for? Really think about what's important to you, what you want to achieve.
So know your own North Star, that guiding principle that'll help you through the challenges and take advantage of the opportunities that come your way.
Exactly. Once you have that, start making decisions that align with it. Look for chances to put your values into action. They may be small things at first, but over time, those choices will make a big difference.
Walk the walk, even in your own little corner of the world.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to learn from others. Read books like Built to Last. Look at companies you admire. Talk to people who are doing amazing things.
Be a lifelong learner, always looking for new knowledge and inspiration.
Right. And remember, building something that lasts takes time and effort. It takes a real commitment to excellence. But it's worth it in the end.
This has been a great conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot from Built to Last, and I hope our listeners have too.
Me too. It's a book packed with wisdom and advice that anyone can use, whether you're running a company, leading a team, or just trying to live a more fulfilling life.
And before we go, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, Quiver Audiobook Summaries, for more summaries and insights just like this.
We're always adding new content, so be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through the principles of Built to Last. We hope you'll keep striving to build something truly remarkable.